Hey, this is a response to Natural 20 Films, who made a list of the top 5 movies that a fantasy role player should see. And my list tends to be a little different than him. Actually, completely different. There aren't any movies that we both had. And these are, of course, my personal picks. If you have a different list, go and make a response to him or comment on his video that I'm going to link into the description box. So let's get to it. Number 5 is Flesh Plus Blood. That's Paul Verhoeven's movie from the 80s before he did his science fiction movies in Hollywood and all that sort of stuff. It stars Rutger Hauer, and I can, that Dutch god is basically, one of those people that if I just see him on the cover of anything, I'm like, I must watch this. And when I was watching like Paul Verhoeven's filmography on the web, and I saw that he made a movie with Rutger Hauer, I was immediately like, yes! And I really like the movie, though it is not really fantasy. I've used this movie many a times to pump up inspiration for me when I'm running stuff that's taking place in more of a realistic setting, in the sense of like the Dark Ages setting in the World of Darkness games. With Inquisitor or with the Dark Ages Vampire or what have you, and I really like it. It's really good inspiration for stuff like that, and it tells a story of this group of bandits or mercenaries who get this kind of this divine inspiration that this saint is leading them to a goal of greatness and all that sort of stuff, and they storm this stronghold, take control of it, and once they've taken control of it, they then have to defend the stronghold from people who want to basically retake it. So yeah, it's a good watch, and I definitely suggest it. Rutger Hauer is sporting a Zweihander, and there's a really good looking female lead. But yeah, that's my number 5 pick. And my number 4 is 13th Warrior. And 13th Warrior is one of my picks mostly due to it's even though it's not really sure if it's fantasy or more realistic, in the sense that the enemies in the movie, it kind of leaves you. I've always thought of the fact that are they supernatural or are they not? Because the movie kind of starts with the villains, the bear tribe people, kind of being this supernatural people and all that sort of stuff, and then they kind of realize that, oh, they are not bear men, they are just men wearing bear skins, and they have like this flame serpent, but it's not really a flame serpent, it's actually a cavalry with torches, and from afar it looks like a flame serpent and that sort of thing. But then again, the bear people like just grab a hold of one guy's head and just rip it off, and they just lift one guy on top of their head and just fling them to the other side of the room and all that sort of stuff. And I just really like that, and I like the fact that it feels like an adventure story, and it's like this party of adventurers who are all like Vikings, and with the main character being an Arab. I just really like it, and I think it's a good inspiration for fantasy gaming when dealing with again with kind of siege things, having to fight a tremendous force with your own kind of band of elite fighters and that sort of stuff. And it's also a great watch. I believe it's made by the same guy who made Predator. So yeah. Then my third pick is Lord of the Rings movies. It's a trilogy, so it's kind of a one package, and I don't want to really pick out anything. Well, I guess the Fellowship of the Ring would be perhaps the most, because that feels the most like introducing this large world and making it such a classic, like adventurer party where people are of the different kind of supernatural or fantasy races, and different classes and different all that sort of stuff, you know. So I just really like it, and it serves as a great like inspiration and kind of a direction pointing tool to, you know, adventure fantasy role playing. And you know, there's lots of monsters and there's lots of action, and something that it does that other ones in my list don't probably do as much is introducing the world, where the characters travel great distances and go to like different locations where they meet all sorts of different people, different cities, different cultures, different monsters, different creatures, all sorts of stuff, and that really like inspires someone to create this whole world that has these whole like whole different cultures and how they differ from each other and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's one of my picks. And my second pick is one of my favorite movies of all time, and that is Conan the Barbarian. And Conan the Barbarian, you know, of course, the 80s one with Arnold, definitely not the remake. I couldn't even stomach to watch it all the way through. But yeah, but still, the Conan the Barbarian is again a great example of, you know, fantasy role playing, in my opinion, because again there's Conan, who's a barbarian, then there's there's Subutai, who is like an archer or something. You could say he's a ranger or something, you know, and then there's Valeria, the woman, who's clearly like a thief or something like that, if you want to put it in that kind of role-playing context with character classes and such. And there's just it's just a classic kind of role-playing stuff where basically a king's daughter has been kidnapped by a cult or lured in by a deadly cult, and he hires thieves to steal her back. You know, it's a really classic kind of an easy kind of deal where, you know, characters get a mission and they and it makes sense. And at the same time, Conan has this big character arc of vengeance and all that sort of stuff. And in the end, it's not only about vengeance; it's also about, you know, being a hero and saving the world from this scourge of this cult and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely been an inspiration to many campaigns of mine, definitely. Perhaps the biggest inspiration to me, personally. And my number one pick is not really a movie, it's actually a mini-series, but, you know, I still want to mention that, and that is 10th Kingdom. And 10th Kingdom is basically about this this group of people. Well, basically, it's about there's this real world that we live in, and then there's the world of the fairy tales, and there's these magical mirrors in the fairy tale world where you could kind of shift between those two worlds, and people from the fairy tale world end up here, and when they try to get back, they take with them people from here, the main characters, basically. And it's kind of cool to see this really like large and imaginative, you know, fairy tale world that has a lot of like fantasy elements, a lot of comedy as well. You know, especially like, you know, how they play like, what is it, Happy Family card games in casinos and that sort of stuff. You know, silly stuff. But it's really fun, and you know, I don't think I've ever seen any movie or TV series or something that feels more like an actual role-playing session. Especially, you know, with all this sort of a comedy that goes into it. It's not, you know, super serious, and all the since it's like the people from the real world in this magic world, it feels really like, you know, people playing characters in a fantasy world or something. And especially one of my first role-playing games that I ever played was this big fantasy setting that was totally created by the game master, and she decided that the best way to to introduce this world to us instead of just telling us of all these things. We played kind of this prelude campaign of us playing ourselves, and we get transported into this magic world, and after that prelude we actually made characters who are in the world and all that sort of stuff. And you know, that's what this miniseries, The 10th Kingdom, makes me think about. And you know, I definitely suggest all of my picks to be watched. That's the whole point. Fantasy role players should see all these 5 movies. So if there's any that you didn't see, you totally should check them out. And if you have a list of your own, do make a video or a comment to Natural 20 Films below. There you go. 北斗神拳